I made a video last week, but I don't think it turned out too well, so here I am trying again. Um, Basically, what I wanted to talk about this time was an idea that's been rolling around in my head for a while, where we should have what I would call the economic idea of essentialism. I'm not an economist. I could really use an economist to help me flesh out this idea and come up with something that's actually useful based on these ideas. I think would be a pretty good idea. Um, so, what I propose is that there are jobs that are less valuable and there are jobs that are necessary. And if we tax jobs that are less valuable, we can use that money to pay for jobs that are more necessary, if that makes sense. Essentialism. Essential jobs are the ones we're trying to go for. So, about 10 years ago, I worked at a job where I would write reports that nobody read. To explain, so I worked for an advertising company, and at the advertising company, we had the salesman that would make sales every week, and they would send in the contracts, and we would sit down and we would type the contracts into the computer. And at the end of the week, or during the week actually, we would also collate the different types of contracts we had. We would organize them into a report that was about 40 pages long, 40 pages long, and then we would file it. So because I was the most junior person at the job, I was the one that often had to file them. And that went on for the entire time I was there, despite the fact that there were new people. It ended up being my job. So I worked at the beginning and end of every month, filing all those reports. I would take, for example, May. I would throw away all of May's from last year, and I would begin filling in the filing cabinets with May of this year. I would do that every month. And during the time I worked there, nobody ever came into the filing office. Nobody ever cared to read these reports. All they wanted was the information at the top of the page, which was, how many contracts did we sell this week and how many advertisements do we have to fill. That's all they cared about. And you could have a high school kid could write a program in 30 seconds that would collate all that stuff for you and fill in the report that you want. There was no purpose for that entire process to be done. And there were 40 people in my department. And the 40 people in my department, most of us were there typing into the computer all of these contracts, which didn't need to be done either, because we could have just scanned all this into a computer and just had the computer read it all and make the reports for us, have somebody there that just checks to make sure that the information is accurate. You could have 40 people reduced down to 2 or 3 people at most. And in fact, you could have the people that were selling the contracts, selling the advertising, fill in the contracts themselves. Like, why weren't they? This whole process didn't need to be done, and it was just silly. So when I brought this up to my boss and told him, hey, why are we doing all this? He says, if we did it like you suggest, you wouldn't have a job. Well, what's the point of my job? Why am I doing this pointless work? And there's a book that came out about a decade ago where they researched about how like 40% of people in jobs today in America say that their jobs are worthless, that they write reports nobody reads, or they try and look busy at work because there's nothing to do. And their jobs really don't need to be done. So why, as a society, are we doing this? And the answer is because CEOs of companies want to have a lot of people working for them, so they can say, hey, my company is really successful. We've got 10,000 or 40,000 or 50,000 people working for me. And also, it's harder to regulate them, to say, hey, we really should look into how you're running your business and add some regulations. They say, oh, you can't regulate me. I employ 50,000 people. Even though a lot of the people that are working for them aren't doing much at all. And the supervisors, of course, justify that they need to have all these workers under them because otherwise their jobs wouldn't exist. The managers of the supervisors need the supervisors to exist. The CEOs are doing this to inflate the numbers so that their business looks more successful. Meanwhile, I'm an environmental scientist. And as an environmental scientist, I see muck in the ground that we need to clean up, and nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody's doing anything. I have reports that I can read to you where we have left oil and diesel fuel in the ground, and nobody is cleaning it up. And so there are necessary jobs. We need to hire people to look for where contamination is. We need to hire people to clean up contamination. Instead, we are paying people to write reports that nobody reads. This is absolutely silly. We should tax the companies that hire people that are doing very little to nothing and use that money toward more important things. Essentialism. And that's my idea. That's what I've got running through my head for a long time, and I would like to see it done. If just on a small scale, we can start out with just increasing taxes and trying to use that money to try and pay for things that are important. And if you ask, well, who gets to decide what's important? Well, the people do. We're a democracy. That's who decides what is important. And thank heavens we're in a democracy, because I think that this is a great idea for how we can run our economy in our democracy. Let's stop doing jobs less important, and let's start doing jobs that are more important. That's what I have for you this week. Thank you.